the next great chapter in the most extraordinary story ever told.
During her speech, a New York Times photographer capturing this striking moment. That is Harris's great niece, Amara, and she's looking on. The picture capturing hope and the idea that in America, you can grow up to be whatever you want if you work hard towards it. Late today, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. suspending his campaign and endorsing Donald Trump. Tonight on The Beat, we have an extraordinary lineup of guests. Acclaimed New York Times columnist Jamelle Bouie is here. The first Black woman senator, Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun, Kamala Harris's sorority sister, Jill Lewis, and Keith Ellison, Minnesota's Attorney General. But we begin with our power panel tonight. Aisha Mills, Democratic strategist, Jason Johnson, politics professor with Morgan State University and an MSNBC political analyst, and Stephanie Brown James, who worked on the Obama campaign and is co-founder of the Collective PAC. Whew, okay. Who, just, a show of hands, who felt like this convention was really 3 years in, but it was only 4 days? Okay, show of hands. Okay, it was power packed. Jason, I'm going to just start with you. What was your take on this week, the story that Democrats told, and culminating in the historic nomination of Vice President Harris just last night?
Simone, the first thing that just kept occurring to me after every night of sort of really impressive and creative speeches is, oh my God, there is an Earth 2 in an alternative universe where this was an open convention and it was a mess, right? Like every single night that the Democrats got together and had a clear, coherent message was a reminder that there were Democratic elites out there that wanted this to be an open convention and it would have been absolute chaos, whereas what we actually got for a week was smooth, consistent messaging, inclusive messaging, except for some very key constituencies. And it ended with a really impressive speech by Vice President Harris. And as someone who has seen her speak going all the way back to when she first ran for the Senate, I've seen her speak in person. Arguably, this is not a cliche. It's probably one of the best speeches I've ever seen her give. And given that this is someone who has only been on the campaign trail for about a month, that is quite an accomplishment. The week pretty much went off without a hitch. I don't think the Democrats could be unhappy about anything.
Well, look, Stephanie, to that point, I think the vice president has only been the candidate for a month, and it is just remarkable, truly, that a month ago, Joe Biden was the Democrats' nominee. And just yesterday, Kamala Harris was accepted the nomination due to, frankly, maneuvering by President Biden. While he was playing chess, others were playing checkers, and he specifically, when he dropped out, he endorsed the vice president. Stephanie, I'm just wondering, your organization works to build Black political power, and I have to imagine that Vice President Harris, now at the top of the ticket as a Democratic nominee, just really has been a boon to those efforts. And this is not just about the presidential. What I also saw this week at that convention is there are a lot of down ballot races that are going to matter here, and those were also highlighted on the stage.
Definitely. The fact that we were able to see Shamari figures on stage, he is a candidate in Alabama too, a newly created district there. And for him to have the opportunity to speak just shows the power of having Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket. We were honored to first endorse her in 2016 when she was running for Attorney General. And so to now just to see her where she is at, I am so happy that you brought up the fact that when Joe Biden passed the baton to her by endorsing her immediately after he stepped down, it was a signal that the tide has changed. A new generation is ready to step into leadership. And here's the thing, she may have only been running as the presidential nominee for just a few weeks. This lady has been campaigning for a very long time, hitting states across the country. And what we saw last night, I think, was a culmination of her showing that she's ready, she's strong on policies, and that she knows is going to take a ground game to continue to build and strengthen a Democratic bench, turn out Black voters, young voters, voters of color to be able to be successful this, I want to say election season, because, folks start voting in a couple of weeks with those early ballots going out. So we're right in it.
As early as September 6th, folks in Pennsylvania are going to cast their ballots. I mean, Aisha, to that point, if you look at those images we just had up on the screen, right, of after the vice president accepted the nomination, gave her speech, her family comes out on stage, you see a sea of people out there and balloons, big blue balloons. And a lot of folks had on white last night, and that the white was a nod to the history that was being made. I also believe it was a nod to Fannie Lou Hamer, who 60 years ago went to a Democratic convention and could not get credentials to even be seated with the Mississippi delegation. And now 60 years later, a black woman, a woman of color, is accepting the nomination. The vice president didn't have on white, Aisha. I was watching what she had on. She had on a monochromatic blue suit. She looked like she could step right off of that stage and into the Situation Room. To me, that said that she knew that she's at work and there's still work to be done. What say you?
Oh, I like that analysis, Simone. I mean, first of all, she's fly. So let's just pause there. But, you know, what I saw on display here was the most amazing clapback, right, to the Trump campaign. Ultimately, this entire convention was designed to say those weirdos are not like us, and us is all of us that you see in this arena right now, which represents every single corner of America, every single demographic. Look at our new our first and second families to be that are standing there up on that stage right now. What we saw was really a marvel of, I think, America at its finest. And I say America at its finest as opposed to Democrats at their finest, because you had Republicans on that stage, you had young people on that stage, you showed how diverse the broad tent was. And I think that this idea that that they tried to really marginalize Trump and Vance and the sycophants and the crazies, right? And say, they're not like us, they're weirdos, look at us here on display, is really, I think, speaking to so many people in this country that may not have felt reflected in a quote unquote, political party structure. But when you're watching this whole convention play out, you're like, wait a minute, that's my neighbor, that's my teacher, that's my homegirl. I feel like I'm a part of this crew. Even if I am a little more conservative than some, I can hang out with them and have a blast, right? Because this was also a big party. So I think that they were very successful in that and really marginalizing the other folks and demonstrating that America should absolutely step up behind this boss that we see there in that dope suit.
Donald Trump was apparently paying attention last night to Vice President Harris's speech. He called into Fox News. Actually, after she finished, he was also rage posting on his social media site while it was happening. And I want to play some of that interview for you from Donald Trump post Vice President Harris's acceptance speech. Take a listen.
She didn't talk about crime. She didn't talk about 70% of our people are living in poverty. She didn't talk about housing, really. The trade deficit. She didn't talk about child trafficking that she's allowed to happen. She's going to give a tax increase of 4 to 5 times what people and companies are paying right now.
Jason, what are those cheek beeps? It seemed like he was very riled up. Did you hear the cheek beeps? I mean, did Democrats? It seems to me like Vice President Harris got under his skin a little bit.
Look, I don't know what the noise was also in the background. I would think that maybe he was on elliptical, but this is Trump. We know he doesn't exercise. Here's the thing. Every argument that he wants to make sort of policy-wise about Vice President Harris doesn't work because he doesn't have much credibility in that area. If you want to talk about the border, if you want to talk about taxes, you have to be consistent about it, and you have to demonstrate that your policies when you were president were better. And Donald Trump can't do that. So most of his anger is really about the fact that he's getting starved out, that he hasn't been able to, that the general political press in America is no longer addicted to Trumpism in the way that he had been before, and that's why he's angry. And I think the great success of the Harris campaign was throughout this entire convention keeping the media focus on them, keeping the media focus on the people on the stage. No gaffes, not what was happening outside the building, not internal politics one way or another. If the worst thing that can be said about a 4-day convention is we all thought Beyonce was going to show up and she didn't, I would say that's pretty successful. And that was a bigger story than anything Donald Trump was tweeting about.
Yvette, who is Beyonce's PR person, was like, how did we get in it? Okay. We will be watching historic convention less than 30 days until people start voting. Aisha Mills, Jason Johnson, and Stephanie Brown James, thank you all very much for kicking us off. Coming up, folks, a tremendous lineup to cap this historic week. Jamelle Bouie from the New York Times, Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun, Jill Lewis, sorority sister of Kamala Harris, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. On Harris, Tim Walz, and the MAGA threat, and much, much more. We are back in 90 seconds. Don't go anywhere.
We have to fight for the truth. We have to fight for Kamala as she will fight for us. Because you know what? It still takes a village to raise a family, heal a country, and win a campaign.
Tommy Copper compression socks are the best socks you'll ever wear. Comfortable, soft, and they've got science built right in. Support where you need it. Cushioning where you want it. Pain-relieving compression reduces swelling and eases muscle fatigue. Breathable to keep you dry. And patented Copper's Energy for lifetime odor protection. Get energized. The more you wear them, the better you'll feel. Upgrade your socks. Go to TommyCopper.com for big savings today.
We need these. Trust me.
For more than a decade, Farxiga has been trusted again and again and again. Ask your doctor about Farxiga.
Meet the Jennifers. Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Each planning their future through the Chase mobile app. Gen X is planning a summer in Portugal with some help from JP Morgan Wealth Plan. Let's go, Whiskers. Gen Y is working with a banker to budget for her birthday. You only turned 30 once. And Gen Z, her credit's golden. Hello, new apartment. 3 gens getting ahead with Chase. Solutions that grow with you. One bank for now, for later, for life. Chase, make more of what's yours.
With bugs, the struggle is real. That's why you need Zevo traps. Zevo works 24/7 to attract and trap flying insects for effortless protection. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes.
Is it weird? Absolutely. Take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity. It's dangerous. It's not just me saying so. It's Trump's own people.
Donald Trump has suffocated the soul of the Republican Party.
Donald Trump would sell this country for $1.
They are out of their minds.
Throughout all 4 nights of the Democratic convention, speakers drew what could be all they talked about is a clear contrast between the policies of the Democratic Party and the MAGA agenda. It was all capped off by Vice President Harris, whose keynote address left no doubt about what is at stake in this election. Joining me now is Jamelle Bouie, renowned columnist for the New York Times, a veteran of Slate Magazine and the Daily Beast, and winner of the Hillman Prize. He's also co-host of the Unclear and Present Danger podcast. Jamelle, it is so great to have you with us today. I'm just wondering, what is your biggest takeaway from this 4-day convention? What stood out most to you?
You know, the most interesting thing about the entire message from the Democrats and from the Harris campaign and from Vice President Harris herself is that they have presented themselves as the challenger of sorts. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, the vice president is the sitting vice president, but in the rhetoric of the Democratic Party throughout the convention, it's as if Trump is the incumbent and they are the challenger. And in some way, this is a fair frame. Trump has not really ever left the scene. He even acts like he's still the president in some way, shape, or form. But it's a very effective way of going after the Republicans because it sticks them with, I think, all of the disruption of the past 8 years.
Yeah, you know what? You're so right. And I do think Republicans have seized on that and picked up on that framing as well, because some of the counter that, I've seen